welcome to my Bloomin readathon vlog. I'm really excited about making the most out of what is left of the fall and what is left of November. For those of you who are not familiar with the challenge, it is a challenge created by one of my favorite booktubers, Allison Pages. It comes with its own beautiful bingo card that she created, and it's a challenge that is very low stakes, and it just inspires people and encourages people to read with intention. As you can see, there are many prompts, and you can double up on the prompts. You can do whatever you want as long as you read intentionally and you have fun with it. I thought it would be a great idea for me to vlog this week because the start of November really sucked for me. I came back from traveling and got sick. I got a really bad cold that I'm still not fully over, and I haven't been reading very intentionally. I've just been reading kind of randomly, and so I think that I need something to give me focus, and the Bloomin readathon is the perfect thing to do that. So without further ado, we're going to start with the two books that I have started this weekend that fulfill multiple prompts. The first book that I have started is The Lonely City by Olivia Laing. I talked about this book in my books for the autumn TBR, and this would fulfill the tree prompt, which is like the tree of knowledge, so it's nonfiction. This book is about New York City, and specifically about the intersection between art and loneliness. It has a beautiful backdrop of New York City, and this was born out of the author's own loneliness in the city. She wrote this in 2017, if I'm not mistaken, and she moved from England to New York City for a man. And then the man was like, just kidding, I don't love you. And she was like, well, what am I supposed to do here? So she ruminates a lot on her own loneliness, and she researches in every chapter a different artist and the role that loneliness played in their artwork. Now, one big criticism I already have of this is that it centers men. It specifically centers white men. However, a lot of her research is really fascinating, and I love the little tidbits that she throws about her own life and her own experiences. I just finished chapter 3. I cannot say my CHs in English. I just finished chapter 3, and she focuses on Edward Hopper. I'll show some of the art that she mentions over here, and truly it is amazing how art is able to capture loneliness in such a beautiful and accurate way. She writes about loneliness and about how you don't necessarily have to be by yourself to feel lonely. Loneliness can be really eerie because you can be alone and be surrounded by people. And like when you live in New York City or when you live in any city, a lot of the times it's hard to escape other people. Like you can literally see them out your window and they can literally see you in your home. She also writes about the shame that comes with feeling lonely and how when you are in it, it's really hard. There's like a push and pull of intimacy. Like you want to be intimate with other people, you want to be able to interact with other people in a deeper, meaningful level, and you can't because you're stopping yourself, and then people start pitying you, or maybe you try too hard to fit in or to talk to people and they're just like, hey, like back off. So loneliness kind of becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, and everybody can be lonely, but once you stop feeling lonely, a lot of the times people lack empathy or like forget what it's like to feel lonely, and so it's just really complex. She also writes about how social scientists weren't really concerned or didn't really do as much research with this concept of loneliness, and that mostly it was something that poets or songwriters did. So yeah, I think some really like beautiful observations here. I'm excited to see where this goes. The first chapter was so strong and the second chapter too, but part of me is like, could this have been an extended essay? Maybe I'm being harsh. We'll see how it goes. The next book I am reading fulfills the spider prompt, which is a dark book, either a dark cover or dark topics, which I think this covers both. And also Cloud, which is a book that will make you feel something. I think this book is gonna make me mad and upset. It follows the titular Vanessa. It goes back and forth when she was 15 and now in the present day when she's an adult. So basically, when Vanessa was 15 and she was in a prep school in Maine, I believe, she was groomed by a teacher who was 42 years old. The book alternates between that first encounter and present day Vanessa when the Me Too movement blew up. And so I think Vanessa comes to the realization that she was taken advantage of. I found this book on Everend, which is the new name for Scribd, and I've been listening to it on audio and also tandem reading it physically. So far, I am in the exposition part of the novel, but honestly, I think it's gonna really pack a punch and it's gonna make me really mad. But I have heard like so many good things about this one, so I'm excited to continue reading it. So I didn't do a TBR video for this challenge, but I just want to talk really quickly about some other books I want to read that fulfill different prompts. The Lying Life of Adults by Elena Ferrante would fulfill the water prompt at least, which is like author I want to read more of. I love Elena, like I cannot get enough of her. I read Days of Abandonment, My Brilliant Friend, and I've also read The Lost Daughter. I want to read this because of Mary Kate. She told me it was really good, and the first lines had me hooked, and they are, 2 years before leaving home, my father said to my mother that I was very ugly. The other book that I am looking forward to reading is The Women of Brewster Place by Gloria Naylor. This is a story about 7 women. It's a novel in 7 stories, is what it says. They are all Black women, and this would fulfill the Earth prompt because it is a book that was published before 1990. Somebody recommended that I read this instead of Girl, Woman, Other, which kind of disappointed me at the start of the year, and so I found it used. I found this one and actually The Lonely City used at the Harvard bookstore, so I am really excited to get to read this one. I love a good book written in vignettes. So that's pretty much it. So I'll see you around. Hi all, it's Tuesday. I want to talk really briefly about the book I just finished for the BLOOMIN readathon, which is my Dark Vanessa, and this book put me in a dark place. This book covers so much. It is about the lies that victims and survivors of trauma tell themselves in order to survive. There are some really difficult scenes in this book that depicted rape and sexual assault. Vanessa went through a lot, and she tells herself that it's not like it was with other girls her age who went through the same thing. I was kind of worried that we were gonna see a transformation from thinking one way about the assault and the years that she lost to this man and how she feels in present day. I think it was a very realistic depiction of what it's like for survivors of abuse to process their trauma, or to at least begin to process their trauma. This book made me so mad at the people in Vanessa's life, which obviously include her teacher, but also her mother and her father, who didn't do enough to really support her. But I feel like it's really difficult for survivors of abuse to come forward, and I think that the new issues that are brought up by the Me Too movement, or that have been brought to light by the Me Too movement, is this notion that you have to be able to disclose your trauma or your abuse, and how it's brave to do so. And obviously it is, but I think that when the Me Too movement began, many women felt forced to disclose that information and were vilified or even looked down on when they decided not to do it. So there's this pressure to share something that you might not feel ever ready to share, and to bring to justice the people who did that to you, when in reality a lot of the times, what we've seen in memoirs like Know My Name by Chanel Miller, is that some of these trials re-traumatize victims. I felt like the book dealt with that issue and that nuance really well. I think it dragged a little bit. I thought it was also very thrilling and suspenseful. But yeah, this was not an easy read. I don't know if I'm glad that I read it, but it was definitely a book that I'm not gonna forget. I'm also really curious about Lolita right now, but I also will probably never read it. Yeah, I feel like I can't say more than what's already been said about the book. Tread lightly if you ever decide to read it. And I'm currently a little bit over halfway done with The Lonely City, and that one is dragging a little bit for me, to be honest. My next audiobook will be this one, and I'm really excited because the audiobook narrator for this book is Marisa Tomei, aka one of the Aunt Mays, and also the wild teacher from Crazy Stupid Love. So I'm really excited to hear her narrate this. I think she's gonna add some pizzazz to it, and I feel like I'm gonna get so much more reading done in the coming days. So here's to reading more. Reading update. So I'm looking kind of rough and disheveled. I'm also feeling rough and disheveled. It is Wednesday. I just wanted to do a quick check-in about the Lying Life of Adults. I started this one last night in the bath, and I am now 10% in. I am really, really, really enjoying it, to the point where I wish that I had bought this. I love Marisa Tomei's voice. She's an excellent audiobook narrator. I would listen to anything by her. I also love that the chapters are really short in this. And most importantly, I love the voice of our main character, Giovanna, who I believe is 12. I really do like stories that are told in a teenage voice and that are introspective and seeking out answers and trying to figure out the world. I feel like I've been drawn to narrators like that a lot. There's a line in My Dark Vanessa where the teacher tells Vanessa, and I am paraphrasing heavily here, that when you are 15 or when you're younger, like in your tweens and teens, you tend to be braver and even stronger. And I think he was buttering her up, obviously,
but you tend to be braver and stronger than when you're older. And I think that that holds true for this as well. It also reminds me of the Taylor Swift and Phoebe Bridgers song, Nothing New, where she says, how can a person know everything at 18 but nothing at 22? I feel really silly quoting that, but it's true. Giovanna she's reckless, she's moody, she's fickle, but she also just wants answers, and she's also really perceptive. So far, it is a fun ride. It absolutely feels like a Ferrante. The other thing that's on here that reminds me of something else, I've been watching Anne with an E on Netflix, and Anne talks a lot about how she wishes she was more beautiful and like she's super vain. Her BFF Diana keeps saying, no, it's better to be smart. Not that you have to be one or the other, but I see a lot of that here where Giovanna is like, she just hates the fact that her dad called her ugly, and like you see her ruminate on that. And honestly, like I have had family members say things about my appearance that I've never gotten over. I just think that Ferrante has such a way with words. She's able to create really believable characters, and so that's what I crave and that's what I want, and I'm so excited to just eat this one up. Happy Friday. I come with a reading update. I just finished, well, yesterday I finished The Laing Life of Adults by Elena Ferrante on audio. It was amazing. I'm glad that I used this one as the water prompt because I really was dying to read more Elena Ferrante. What I love about her is the fact that all of her books center women. I think all of her books have an element of vulgarity to them, and it's all like women being nasty. I feel such a connection with the characters in Elena Ferrante's stories. Her books also deal with the patriarchy, and they also deal with differences in social classes. There's so much like ruminating going on in the characters in all of her books, and just women not being able to let go of thoughts that are just intrusive. I just like eat that up. I think it's delicious. I didn't say much about this book when I first started reading it, so I just want to share what it's about without being spoilery. Essentially, this book focuses on a girl named Giovanna who is a teenager, and she overhears her parents talking about how she's ugly. Particularly, her dad is saying she's ugly, and her mom doesn't really object. She's like, don't say that. And her dad says she's just like her Aunt Vittoria, and Giovanna realizes she doesn't really know her dad's side. Her dad is a professor, he's very well respected, but he basically was a rags to riches story. And so she never gets to hear from his side of the family, and she just has it in her that she needs to meet this Aunt Vittoria. This book is also set in the 80s, I believe, so it is historical fiction, and so she goes through great lengths to try to meet this Aunt Vittoria, and she eventually does. And so I'm gonna leave it at that. It's a coming of age story, but it's not like a cheesy coming of age story. It's really, really vulgar. Like I feel like that's just a good way of describing a lot of Elena Ferrante's books. Giovanna talks about how she has this yearning to be heroically vile, and I think that is such a good description. I think I was a really reckless teenager, and I can identify so much with Giovanna. Giovanna is boy crazy. She keeps inserting herself into other people's lives. She falls in love at first sight. She's just exploring, and I love that for her. And her life kind of goes to and you get to see her like navigate that. I love that Elena trusts her audience to just come to their own conclusions. If you're looking for a book that's about like messing up your life and exploring your sexuality, and if you want to read about women and girls thinking about the ugly parts of themselves and questioning the world around them, I think this is a good one. It's not my favorite Ferrante, but I still like adored it. In terms of the Women Readathon, I'm also going to add the moon to this one because this takes place outside of the United States. Ferrante is Italian and her characters are Italian. This takes place in Naples. I want to continue this theme about reading books that center women. Like we read My Dark VANESSA and this Ferrante, and now I really want to read The Women of Brewster Place. I am excited to learn about these 7 women, and I'm hoping that this is a win as well. I found this cutie for the fertilizer prompt. It's a graphic novel called Crushing, and I thought it fit perfectly with our theme of loneliness. This book is set in a city, and it's all about misconnections and two lonely strangers seeking out companionship. I love the pups of red, and I thought it was very sweet and enjoyable.
Hi, hello. It is Saturday, so I just had like a really touching moment in the library. I read this whole thing. This also fulfills a variegated prompt because it is not very popular. I believe it just has like 300 reviews on Goodreads. I think sometimes we get so in our heads when we are in a big city and we don't stop to think about how every person is a whole world, which is a perfect segue to The Woman of Brewster Place, which I actually finished this morning. I read most of it, and I think I read like 30 or 40 pages this morning when I woke up. I adored this one. This fulfills a cacti prompt because it is a shorter book or anthology. It's technically a novel in 7 stories.
Whoops, I also forgot 2 more prompts. It fulfills the propagation prompt because it was adapted into a miniseries in 1989. Oprah stars in it. I really gotta watch it. And it also fulfills the daffodil prompt because it is about friendship.
So like I said yesterday, this book follows 7 different women who all live in Brewster Place in New York City. There's women in 3 different generations. So we have older women, we have younger women, we have middle-aged women, and you get to see here little vignettes about their lives. These stories are so human. You get to see what these women are made of and all of the things that they have been through. You get to see their hardships, some of their successes, and at the end of it all, as cheesy as it sounds, you get to see how they all support one another, and you just get to see how they're there for each other in the good and the bad. This book is really lyrical. There are some breathtaking passages. There's also some laugh out loud funny passages. And some questions that it touches on is like, how do you raise your children in a world that constantly dehumanizes them and doesn't treat them with respect? So in the face of oppression, how do you raise your children? Why do people have kids, right? I feel like I like when books bring up really good questions. I also love that this is really truly a book about friendship. There's some talk about queerness, right? This was published in the early 80s, but there's some talk about queerness. We have 2 women characters talking about romantic love between women versus like friendships between women, and how they can be really similar, and how sometimes you have stronger relationships with your friends than in your previous romantic relationships. It's a book about sisterhood. It feels so real and true to life. It also touches on issues like how can women and people facing racism and oppression and poverty fight for their rights. We also read about women who don't fit societal standards of what is proper, and it's just such a beautiful work of art. I totally agree with the comparisons between Girl, Woman, Other and this one, and I think that this one, in its relative brevity compared to Girl, Woman, Other, does such a nicer job in expressing what it's like to live in a community and how women work together to lift each other up. As cheesy as that sounds, oh my god, I feel like I'm not doing this book justice. I have 100 pages left of The Lonely City, and I need to finish it today. Like, this cannot keep going. I need to finish it. It's like crazy how I'm able to finish this one so quickly, and this one is just taking me forever. Hi, so closing off the vlog here because I am still not finished with The Lonely City. I will finish it by the end of the week. I will talk more about it in my wrap up. Overall, I thought the ideas explored at the beginning were really great. I wish the author has shared more about themselves. There's a line in here where Olivia says that she is trans or non-binary. She uses any pronoun. So far, I've thought that this is intriguing. I'm gonna show you the bingo board and what I've done so far. If I haven't talked about some of the books, it's because I didn't read them during the vlog. This was really enjoyable. I hope this isn't too long, and see you later. Bye.